This is Dianne Andrews in Black and White. The issues you don't want to talk about. The arts and entertainment you need to know. And now here's your host, Dianne Andrews.
Thank you for being here, and we welcome you to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. And I'm your host, Dianne Andrews. I do a lot of shows on controversial issues, but then I do some shows that shine a light on people of importance, organizations of importance, and corporations who have done something to help mankind. Today, I bring a politician. And we usually don't say, well, what have they done? You know, it's always controversy around a politician. But I think the person that I bring today, you can only say good things about what's happened to the city of Baton Rouge and the surrounding parish, all the parish of East Baton Rouge, which he is mayor president of East Baton Rouge Parish. And his name is Melvin. I bet some of y'all are saying, who is that? His name is Melvin Kip Holden. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I tell you, when my dad called me Melvin, I knew I was in trouble.
Oh, okay, yeah. And I didn't know your name was Melvin until I was investigating for the show. I've been trying to get the mayor on for about 6 months with his schedule and what he's been doing. You know, it's hard to get you on the, and we only, you know, when we tape, you know, it's already set. And I sure appreciate Scott for working with me, your guy up there, for working with me to get you on. But Mayor, you took over this parish. Because a lot of us don't think about Baker and Zachary, our part, you know, as Baton Rouge people, we only think about Baton Rouge, sorry y'all. But, you know, you have the whole East Baton Rouge Parish. When we think about when you were inaugurated in January of 2005, and I know most of y'all out there know what happened, right? That he had to take over a couple of years, you know, that hurricane. I want to call it that hurricane.
That's correct.
Hurricane Katrina.
Which will be 10 years now.
That's right. So that year, a few months later, a couple of months, 6, 7 months after you got in office, how did that, you know, I mean, it had to be overwhelming because it was overwhelming for everyone who was around that hurricane. And we took so many people in. Baton Rouge and you all were so gracious. And Houston, Texas, I can't leave out either, for taking so many of the Katrina survivors into their rooms. And I'm going to ask you that question, but first I want to give a little more background. Kip wants to do what I'm doing, okay? That's what he wanted to do first. Kip majored in journalism at LSU. And then he went on and he went to Southern's law school. But in the interim, he's from New Orleans originally, born down there. And he went down to New Orleans and worked on the radio down there. And then he was on Channel 2 as a reporter. He was a reporter on radio, a news director on radio, a reporter on Channel 2 here in Baton Rouge. And then he left the exciting life and you went to, what was it, the Census Bureau? Yeah. He went to the Census Bureau. I looked at this, why? And then you went on to workers' comp. You worked in workers' comp. And then he got the law degree, and he was a state representative, on to state senator, and on to now our mayor president. So it's been a great journey for you, Chip, and we're glad you were here, Kip, especially during the hurricane.
It's been tremendous, frankly. And all of us who've been in the journalism stage understand that you could have that job today and you could be gone the same day. Right. And that's one of the things that happened to me in TV. I had the job that morning, went out to do my work, and then that afternoon I was called in and told I was fired. And the difficulty then was I was raising 2 children. I was a single parent. And now trying to figure out how are you going to take care of these children, and still what other jobs will you look at in order to make sure you could still take care of your family. Those are daunting
and never be fired and not have that disruption of salary again.
That's exactly right. And you know, the key thing is your children. And I see a lot of people now who should be paying more attention to their children, and they're not. And so I paid attention to those kids. I could do everything except comb my daughter's hair. You know, and I'll go back to when I was sworn in as mayor. I bought her a dress. I bought her a little pantyhose.
How old was she then?
She was about 8 years old.
Oh, okay.
So I bought the dress, the pantyhose, and the shoes. And just as we were getting ready to walk into the theater to be sworn in, the first thing she says, "Dad, these shoes are too tight. Dad, this dress is too short. Dad, my hair's not right."
Oh my
I said, "Monique, I don't normally drink alcohol, but today you have driven your dad to drink.
So you had to find another wife, and you have a beautiful wife, Lois. Lois is such a nice lady. Hi out there, Lois. Yeah. So then, okay, that's a great day. Although your daughter's upset with you. Yeah. Now your son, he used to, he had a landscape service business.
Right.
He worked
landscape service. Yeah. Now he drives 18-wheelers across the eastern part of the United States.
He used to do my yard. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I have another daughter who has finished her master's at Southern. She works for the community college. Another daughter who works human resources out in Los Angeles for a major company. Yeah. And then both of my sons are now engineers.
So you have 5 children?
I have 5 children. Yes. Okay. And I'm one of 5 out of my family, and the same alignment. You have 3 boys and 2 girls.
Wow, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you, tell me again, let's start with 2005. You're taking office, and of course everything's new to you, any person coming into that office. Then Katrina hits. Right. What happens?
Well, it started off on Valentine's Day and the day before. The biggest complaint people had, and they still are having, is transportation and the roads being clogged. So on Valentine's Day and the day before, we summoned about 40 different engineers from around the country and said, here are the problems we're facing. Can you check your egos at the door and come up with some kind of plan that could get the traffic moving in Baton Rouge? And so we got that moving, but then let's fast forward to Hurricane Katrina. Right. Hurricane Katrina was kind of different because if people recall, it first came inland, okay, and then it went back out into the Atlantic. Okay, I tried to take 2 days off just to rest, and then I got a call one day after I was on vacation and said, you need to hurry up and get back to Baton Rouge. There's a major storm coming our way. And sure enough, that storm came on that Monday morning before, you know, the winds got rough. I was interviewed by Miles O'Brien, and he says, Mayor, what do you think about this hurricane? I said, Miles, this will probably be known as the X Factor hurricane, because I don't think anybody can even imagine the amount of damage this storm is going to cause. Now, in the meantime, we had to take people who were staying in the school system since that Thursday, who they opened their doors to let people in for shelter. And then we had to, they called and said over the weekend, we can't keep the people here because we have to start school on Monday. So then on that Sunday night, we started moving people into the River Center. Right. And so therefore, in 1 week, we exceeded our 25-year traffic projection, and we got over 125,000 people in 1 week. And so all of that is going. Then you have LSU. They're scheduled to play Arizona. And so I hear from the athletic director, the chancellor, and the president, what should we do? And I said, you don't have a choice. You have to move this game. And they did. Because the helicopters were landing on the football field, helicopters were landing on the track field, and then at the same time, there's no way with all the traffic that they would have been able to get people in to be triaged, and that was going on at the basketball arena. So you have all of that going, and then the next day you got another storm of sorts, and that's when the levee broke. Right. And when the levee broke, the conditions were even worse.
Especially for New Orleans.
For New Orleans, it was something. And a quick story.
I think New Orleans needed you down there more.
Look. And so here's a guy that was living out in the area where the levee broke, and he tells the story basically
down in New Orleans.
Yeah. He tells the story how he had gotten his 3 children up to the roof, and they were on top of the roof. And then his wife, he was trying to pull her up, but yet he was holding her hands just like this. He's grasping to hold on to his wife. And at the same time, now she says to him, baby, my hands are slipping. And he says, my grip is too, but I can't let you go. And then it came to the point which was very disturbing to hear, where she had to tell him goodbye. Oh my God. And then she just let it go, and then she's gone, and he's left to raise 3 kids. But during that thing, we had a lot of different movie stars that came in, and I think Frankie Beverly. Frankie Beverly heard this man's story, and then built a house for him in Alabama.
Oh, wow.
And so this was something that was just very, very moving.
You know, out of tragedy comes triumph and beautiful stories.
Without a doubt.
Right.
Rosie O'Donnell,
right.
$1 million for Head Start Center. When you had John Travolta
out in Baker,
and his
is that
wife.
where she put
That's
that
exactly
center out
right.
in Baker, didn't she? Yeah.
John Travolta and his wife, they came in with that big giant plane full of food and goods for people.
Kelly Preston, the actress.
You had a lot of different people who came in and actually made a difference in the quality of life, because back then, technology-wise, we were only using a flip chart.
Right.
And writing things on a flip chart and then telling people what to do.
It's amazing in 10 years with the invention of mobile phones and how it's exponentially grown and computer systems.
The computers.
Yes, I started with IBM.
Really saved us.
Yes.
But when I tell you, there were a lot of hardship stories. For example, the Sewer and Water Board of New Orleans, they asked, and Baton Rouge Water Works responded, but they were asking for a sheet full of supplies that the Waterworks company here, they were not using anymore. But yet, Baton Rouge Waterworks came in and says, I'm not sure I'll be able to get them, but let me try and see. Baton Rouge Waterworks, and let me thank them again, got all the supplies needed by the New Orleans Sewer and Water Board. The Jefferson Parish and Plaquemines Parish governments and their school boards, they didn't have a place to meet. They met right here in the chamber downtown.
And FEMA was headquartered in Baton Rouge also,
They were headed at headquarters. We had to then take the National Guard in because, you know, when that situation is so fluid, and I guess when you mentioned Mayor White of Houston, it's a prime example because...
Bill White, I've written a book, and Bill's in my book here.
So I can tell you about him. This guy asked Rodney Ellis, who's a state senator, Rodney, can you meet me at the Astrodome about 8 o'clock? We're expecting some guests. Rodney said yes. An hour later, he calls back and tells Rodney, obviously, I had the wrong time. They'll be coming somewhere between 6 and 7. Can you meet me? Rodney said yes. When the bus rolled in and people started getting off that bus, those were not people who were seeking evacuation. That bus had been hijacked. From New Orleans.
Heard this story.
Yeah, and New Orleans got, I'm sorry, Houston got so bad, the crime rate increased in 2 weeks up to 40%.
Yes.
And so therefore, I mean, I got to thank Mayor White for being able to handle such a critical situation. But also, we had mayors in different parishes that did the same. A lot of things that other people don't know, that surprisingly 6 months before Hurricane Katrina, there was a dry run on a Category 5 hurricane.
In South Louisiana?
Yes, ma'am. And it basically said you start evacuating from North Louisiana and you work your way back, but you don't get into the danger zone.
Right.
It didn't work that way. When they got to Baton Rouge, after Baton Rouge was full, they headed to Lafayette. And so you had evacuees in 44 states and 3 different countries. And it was just something that was just really amazing to try to deal with. But the call that really got to me was both of my boys had come from New Orleans on that Thursday. One was at Xavier, the other one at Tulane. And so I get a call from my son in the middle of all of this is going on. Every 2 minutes you're taking a phone call. And my son says, Dad, I got some friends at Xavier, water's up to their knees, can you please help them? So now what's going through my mind, I said, I'll see what I can do. But then now what's going through my mind, if I don't help those children, will the parents of those children say, I bet if those were his kids, he would have done more to save their lives?
That's right.
Or what impact would that text have on my son for the rest of his life? 5 minutes later, a state trooper walked in, and I said, sir, can I talk to you for a minute? Told him what had happened, and he was able to get some troopers out of New Orleans to rescue those 10 kids who were stationed there.
Some beautiful stories here out of that we've never heard.
Well,
Kip, you need to chronologize this.
Well, and that's what I'm in the process of doing.
Now, I've written a book, and I'm giving you a copy of it. And I have a Katrina Jones honorees and your Bill White.
Because I can tell you that
this is great.
Mayor White, myself,
he won an award, Peabody Award for that I have in the book.
He and myself and Shirley from Atlanta, the former mayor.
Oh, okay,
And so we had to be on the morning shows almost every morning.
Where was New Orleans mayor?
We
know where he is now.
Nobody knew where he was. Matter of fact, the Louisiana Municipal Association reached out to get him, and we could not find him. Then 6 weeks later, there's a telegraph that's sent to the LMA that says, if people need to reach me, just leave a number and I'll get back in touch.
6 weeks later?
6 weeks later, yeah.
People are either dead by now or still stuck somewhere if it's left up to that mayor. Okay.
I can tell you the firefighters in New Orleans, the firefighters in Baton Rouge, the police department in New Orleans just fell into complete chaos because many of those officers fled New Orleans.
Yeah.
Some came to Baton Rouge, some came to other cities, but there was just total turmoil going on. In the meantime, we have about 150 people working in our Homeland Security office. And you can't, when that storm came, when that levee broke, when I tell you Walter Mansour was talking.
Was that your chief administrative officer at the time, right? Yes.
Oh, yeah. And so he's talking to people, but he even cracked in the sense of the tears just started rolling down his face. And that's when I stepped in and put my hands on Walter back. And then I'm looking at these 100 and something workers and telling them, look, I know y'all have been away from your families a long time. This is a tough situation we're all having to deal with. But I got to ask you this. I have to ask you to show the world our best because there are so many people depending upon us.
Well, since you've been, I don't want to interrupt you, but we're of course, limited with time. I want to get to some of the things because it rolls right into what you've done. You've taken chaos and turned it into systematic greatness. As you hear, and Baton Rouge now ranks, it was in the low 50s when you came into its economic growth and job stability, and now it's in maybe in a one number, but at least in the top 20 cities
we're in the
top
country. 20s in so many different categories.
This story shows how you have the ability to take that, and I know your aspirations are to take your career further.
Yeah.
I can't really say it right now.
But my whole thing was this. There were so many people. There was an official from the White House that said if I could give a Medal of Honor to any city, it would be Baton Rouge because the people took people in, some once, some more than once. And so all of that is going on. You got to thank General Honore for going into New Orleans and calming the situation down.
He's in my book. He's in here too, about Katrina.
And so all of those things were happening. Our firefighters were at the fairgrounds, and they were trying to help people through what we call...
I'm going to interrupt you because we need to take a short break, but we're going to finish it when we come right back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. We're also going to tell you about the tax credit situation. As we know, Louisiana is in 2014 was the #1 state in the country for movie production. But we'll be right back. Come on back to us.
Order your copies now of Dianne Andrews' latest books, Third Man Out, a suspenseful mystery by Dianne Andrews, and Gumbo for the Heart, 25 stories of faith, hope, and charity, both available now on Amazon.com.
Thanks for coming back, and I know you heard these tremendous stories from our mayor, and we're going to continue a little with that, and then we're going to talk about the impact of the new bill for the Louisiana tax credits, which is not too favorable for us. So talk to us a little bit more, Kip, and then we're going to introduce another guest in.
Well, Representative Nita Hutter was at the school, I believe in Chalmette. The water was up to the 2nd floor. The state's number for emergencies was a private number back then. And so therefore, Baton Rouge was getting all the calls. So we get a call that one morning, there's a pilot of a C-130 transport who had been on the ground at Barksdale since 8:30 that morning, and now it's 3:30 in the afternoon, where he called and said, can you please call somebody and ask them or tell them we have to get a release in order to bring all of this food to Baton Rouge. And so it was so many things going on. It was a lot of chaos that took place.
How would you say that relates to your ability the last 10 years? You know, when you get indoctrinated by fire, it can only get a little smoother for you, hopefully.
Well,
but what what brought you through and help you to make this into such a great city, Baton Rouge?
My faith in God. And the other thing, when you have 100 people that you're supervising, you cannot show any expression on your face one way or the other. You have to stay straight-faced but still treat them as humans.
Right.
And so therefore that got me through. But faith in God got me through, because every moment was something different. And I'll leave you just with this real quick one. November 28th, the Kellogg Foundation came down to New Orleans to offer...
Of 05 again, we're talking 05.
Yeah, to help offer aid to people. Then it was my wife's birthday, and so after the presentation, I brought her back downstairs. There's a gentleman sitting at a bar across from me, and then all of a sudden he walks over and he says, I know a lot of people have been walking by shaking your hands. You must be somebody important. I said, well, I'm the mayor of Baton Rouge. And then he sat down. And then he says, I just want to tell you this. God told me to tell you to save my people. And so I'm really just stunned by what he says right now, because, you know, I just wasn't ready for it. And then he said it again. God told me to tell you to save my people. He said, there are politicians here who are able to do it, but God told me to tell you to save my people. At that time, I mean, the tears just flowed.
Right.
And I had to walk outside.
Right.
And I was outside for about, roughly about 5 minutes. And then came back in and asked, did anybody see where that man had gone? Nobody saw where he had gone. And so my wife said that had to be an angel.
That's right, coming to tell you what God, he sent a message to you, and you helped save the people, Kip. I see tears coming to your eyes now. And that's what we meet. I did a keynote at Remington College the other day, and I told them, remember humility and humanity, and that will get you through your life. But I want to welcome Susie Limbury to our show. She's an actress, and she's an advocate for the film industry. This just happened last week, but I did want, because Kip is so knowledgeable. He's the Baton Rouge Film Commission reports into our mayor here. So he's very knowledgeable of what this $180 million cap is going to do to the industry. And Susie's been hearing some things going on. I'm going to bring Kip back for a show about him, but we're also going to do an entire show in September with other executives on what the impact we've already seen in less than a week of what's going on. Kip, well, Susie, say hi to the audience for me.
Well, hello, everybody. Hi.
And well, just what are you hearing briefly, and then we'll get to Kip, who probably knows a little more details. What are you at liberty to say that this cap is doing for the Louisiana tax credits for our film industry?
Well, I'm really not happy with what the cap is doing. I fought the 180 cap, and I fought the 200.
180 million. Yeah.
180 million
per year, isn't it?
Per cap.
Per year.
I fought that because we thought it would be fatal to the industry.
And Kip, I agree with her. For us, for the state.
She's 100% correct. You know, there were some people who were using the system, no doubt about it. But if I have a cut on my hand, why cut off my arm or my whole hand?
Right.
They knew what was wrong. So all they had to do was, you know, do a little patchwork, and the things where people were getting through the cracks and misusing the system, they should have closed those loopholes. But they treated everybody as if everybody was cheating the system. And now what they've done is really destroy something that we had to work hard for, because after Katrina came through in 2005, we had to go out in Los Angeles because people from other states, they were telling everybody in Los Angeles, there's no need of you going to New Orleans because everything, I mean,
the lobby, you had to go out there and lobby for us.
Everything's underwater.
Right.
And so all of these cities have built up now the infrastructure and everything.
Which we have a lot of workers, thousands of people who live in this state are employed in this industry.
You have one right here that's been out there a lot.
300 films, 300 films.
A long time.
Yes.
But we also took single moms who you would see just waiting around to see whether or not they may get a shot to just, you know, be cast in the movie. And then, but one lady came up and says, you know, I'm a single parent. If I did not have these parts, I wouldn't be able to take care of my children.
Right.
But none of that was taken in by anybody.
But you say even bigger, though, as you mentioned, the infrastructure. The editing is done here now.
That's exactly right.
The graphics is done here now. We've got people with skills. If they can't get work, they'll be leaving Louisiana because there's nowhere.
Look at community college. They are doing a lot of things. And then we have a program where we teach people and bring all of those in. And then a lot of the people who are doing the movies, the production people and all of those, they're willing to help teach young kids. But
in fact, I film at Indie Stages with right here. You're looking at me in a movie. They do movies in this.
And so you have all of those assets coming in. And yet,
what about Celtic?
Celtic is doing a tremendous job.
Right. Yes. Celtic Studios.
They had a setback when the NASA facility out of New Orleans was sold to a company, and they felt they were mistreated in that whole deal. But the bottom line now is we're in a state of turmoil.
Yes.
And people have invested in a lot of these movies, and now with the tax credit being brought down to such a low number, I expect there will be a lot of lawsuits filed to at least make them hold off on those until some common sense.
But you know, Hollywood is not waiting.
Hollywood
they got to pay. This film is going on to
in other words,
2 months. I got to know where I'm shooting.
Right, and that's exactly right. So what has happened to Louisiana, unfortunately, is the fact that not only are companies saying we're not coming right now, but people are losing work. And now trying to find additional work, they would have to move to another state.
You know something Georgia did? I'm going to say this real quickly. I was looking at other tax credit states. Georgia, Liza told me when Kelso, when she was on the show, was our #1 competition. They do a 20% tax break, and then they give you 10% extra tax break if you put that Georgia logo. Because then it becomes advertising dollars. Hey, you all out there, make them put the Louisiana logo on, and then the money goes into a different budget.
That would be great.
And that, hey, I gave y'all the idea, film industry, let's do something with that, because that's what Georgia does. And I know I've seen that little Georgia peach at the end of some movies.
Yeah.
That's a very smart idea they do. Let's steal it.
Yeah, why not? I mean, they don't have a monopoly. We'll just take it away
I think
and
it's
say,
a great idea.
that was a slip.
So you give them 20%. If you do this other little thing for me, which is advertising my state, I give you another 10% incentive.
And then it becomes great for tourism.
That's right. Susie, anything you'd like to tell the people out there?
Well, I want to tell you that I'm very unhappy with the $180 million cap.
I think we spent 270, 250, 270 in the state last year million.
Right.
It's unconstitutional. There are some things in the bill that's House Bill 829, Act 134 that are good, that helps the independent filmmakers. There will be opportunities for them.
We're going to bring them back, you all, but we're going to have to close right now. This is a great show. I'm going to bring the mayor back. I'm telling you, I'm flabbergasted at these great stories. So we're bringing him back alone again, but I just wanted to get something in on tax breaks, and I knew you were so familiar with them, so maybe we can start some conversations out here, talking to your legislators.
Well, let me thank you and your whole team for allowing us a chance to basically let the people know all that is going on, and some of those things they never would have found out had it not been for you and your show.
Thany you very much. I appreciate that. Nice seeing you again, Susie. Bye-bye. You know, I got that bye-bye, that old Southern girl thing. Bye-bye. Dianne Andrews in black and white.